Second one up. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. It's so nice to see so many of you students and parents, members of our staff. Welcome. Tonight is Thursday, June 16th. This is our last Board of Education meeting of the school year, and we are really looking forward to two fantastic presentations. It's my pleasure to make a motion for the board to return to public session. If I could have a second. Thank you, Rory. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, 7-0. And would everybody please join us, as is our custom, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. And as I mentioned, we are really looking forward to two presentations this evening. And we just want to take a moment to acknowledge the amazing presentations and energy in the foyer shortly before we entered this meeting. Thank you so much to our students for your research, your knowledge, your dedication to important matters related to sustainability and climate change and our environment, and for caring about the world in which we live, and for teaching us a great deal even before we walked into the meeting, and for staying, for those of you who are able to stay for our meeting and who are about to present with us here tonight. We're very grateful. This is quite a celebration and really the culmination of so much hard work on behalf of our students and our staff. And we take great pride in seeing all that you've accomplished. And we're really grateful that we were able to make these arrangements for tonight. So thank you so very much, and congratulations, especially to our students. We're going to hear two substantial presentations tonight. One, of course, related to sustainability, which is the culmination actually of many years of work and just an opportunity to update the Board of Education and our community on where we are and to celebrate some terrific achievements, and also to look ahead to the future of our facilities and to anticipate some really exciting opportunities. And tonight really is the beginning of a broader district-wide conversation, and we're so grateful that many of you are here to join us, and to our committee members who are supporting this work and who have been terrifically dedicated throughout the year. So again, thank you everybody for being here. Before we turn our attention to the presentations, I'm just going to pause briefly for any board announcements. It's my pleasure to invite board colleagues to share a few words about the Humanities Research Symposium, please. Bill.
Yeah, so I went to the Humanities Symposium the other day. I was sort of sad I can only go to one room at a time. So I had to quickly look at the program and see which room I wanted to go to. And it was just very, very impressive. I am positive that I was not capable of doing this type of sustained research. They would work on something for years and it would become from a poster to a presentation to a paper. For high school students to be able to make slides and stand in front of somebody and speak for 20 minutes on their research is just fantastic, and will serve them well, but it was just very impressive.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Would anybody like to add or perhaps have another board announcement? Yes, please, Catherine.
It was so exciting to see the buses and all of the really, really beautiful people that were getting into the buses tonight for senior prom, which is something I know that has been sort of at a stall because of COVID. So I also think it's really exciting that next week we'll celebrate so many moving up celebrations in person and our graduation next week. So weather looks great. We can't wait to celebrate that in person.
Thank you so much, Catherine, and thank you to our administrators, many of whom I saw boarding the bus. That was beautifully.
Also looking very handsome.
quite well clad, absolutely. And so, yes, thank you for reminding us that we can't take these things for granted, and that it's wonderful that our students are out celebrating tonight. Thank you. Anything else before we move on? If not, then we would love to hear some announcements from you, please, Andrew.
Sure, thank you. I'm going to keep them brief tonight because we've got these terrific presentations to get to. But I'll echo Catherine's thoughts and wish a safe and happy prom to our seniors. Hopefully, they're not stuck in traffic and already enjoying the prom.
Exactly.
We had a really nice celebration yesterday afternoon for our senior athletes who are going on to play their respective sports at their colleges. They were with their families and siblings on the contest field, grandparents in some cases yesterday. That was really nice. Thank you to Chris McCarthy and others for organizing that event. Just a reminder that our schools are closed on Monday in honor of the Juneteenth holiday. This is the very first year that public schools all across New York State are actually required to be closed in celebration of this holiday. Last year, it became a federal holiday, as we know, for the very first time. And this is the day that commemorates the emancipation of enslaved people in the United States. So a very important holiday for us to celebrate. And actually this week, I know that across all of our elementary schools, students were reading books about the day, learning about it. So we're happy to be joining in the celebration and making it a learning opportunity for our students. And again, as Catherine just mentioned, next week is really a culminating week. We have the John Jay High School graduation at Caramore on Tuesday at 11, moving up for the middle school on Wednesday at 9:30, and moving ups in all 3 elementary schools on Thursday at 9 a.m. So busy week and a very exciting and joyful week too. So a nice end. And that's it for tonight.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We appreciate all of that. Good, good energy and this very exciting time of year. And now it's my pleasure to turn our attention to the first presentation and to invite Mary to please set the stage for us. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. So good evening, everyone, and thank you. And it's so nice to see so many people here and so many people who came out for the celebration. So thank you to everyone. It's
Pardon
really
me, Mary, but
wonderful.
please, for those family members who might not know, Mary Ford is our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction and an integral member of our Sustainability Board Subcommittee. And thank you, please.
Thank you. So I'd like to begin by introducing, if our clicker will work this evening. Doesn't seem to be. Sorry?
On the side.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, that should be it.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. So you'll see on the slide a list of this evening's presenters. So we have several teachers, our Director of Facilities, Paul Christensen, and we have some of our student leaders named there as well. Although they're not mentioned on this slide, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our board's sustainability subcommittee members. They're an incredibly knowledgeable and passionate group of people, and I've learned so much from them over the past few years. So thank you. And their work that they've been doing for many years has really informed all of the work that you'll hear about this evening. So we'll name them a little bit later, but I just wanted to thank them. So this evening we are joined by Melissa Brady. Melissa is one of our new curriculum integration leaders and middle school family and consumer science teacher. To mention Paul Christensen, Director of Facilities, Laura Monash, who's the school psychologist at Meadow Pond and also Meadow Pond's Recycling Matters Club advisor. Jim Panzer is not here this evening, but he is the other curriculum integration leader for secondary, and some of his students were presenting tonight. Steve Zoller, who's our K-12 staff developer for STEAM and sustainability. And I will say in large part, tonight's celebration is thanks to Steve. He really, such tremendous effort to make sure that happened. He also works with the Earthrise Sustainability Club as an advisor. And then we have our student leaders. We have Ava, Nola, and Fiona from elementary. Elena, Caitlin, and Grayson from middle school, and Carolina Cerna for high school. Carolina is also the president next year of the Earthrise Sustainability Club. So just wanted to start, this is a slide I know you're very familiar with, but thinking about the big focus areas for our district, the things that we think bring the learning commitment alive. And those are, we see them as opportunities to really work on the learning commitment. These are the places where the big problems in the world exist, for sure. And you'll see diversity, equity, and inclusion, social emotional learning, but you'll also see sustainability named there as one of the things we want to focus on even more as time goes by. But you also see that's interconnected. We try to kind of shade them so they blend together because there is an intersection between DEI, SEL, and sustainability work. And that's some of the interesting curriculum work that our faculty is doing right now. And this is a framework that we've been basing some of our work on. The Cloud Institute has been doing this work for many, many years. And you'll notice that it really starts with the self. So in the center, each person has to kind of work on their own knowledge and reflection about their own practices and how they impact others and impact the earth and our environment. So, and then it moves out into thinking about classrooms, schools, and the physical plant. So you'll hear a lot about that from Paul this evening, and even in communities. So it really is, you know, a comprehensive look at how everyone around this work supports it. But for tonight's presentation, we'll focus on three main areas: community, curriculum, and campus. So we'll start by speaking about community and just giving you this timeline. And as I mentioned before, our sustainability committee, our board sustainability committee has been doing this work for many, many years. So you'll see there, it starts back, the committee was formed in 2009. And we've been doing lots of work. We actually did show this slide last year, but we've added 2 pieces to it for 21 and 22. So in 2021, we added the Sustainability in Our Schools Committee. So we now have a committee in addition to the board subcommittee that's made up of faculty members. Our students often attend from the Earthrise Sustainability Club. They've been really helpful to us. Steve is there, Lara. I'm seeing a lot of the teachers who are here this evening are the teachers who attend consistently, but helping to think about ways that we can embed sustainability into the curriculum and also into everything we do, even into our routines. Alexa Kaufman is a guidance counselor at the high school. She's another member of the team, and she's actually an advisor for Relay for Life. So she's thinking about ways to make that event more sustainable, right? Thinking about recyclable products and things like that. So, you know, we're trying to really embed this in the fabric of everything we do. But you'll also see up there the appointment of our new curriculum integration leaders, Melissa Brady and Jim Panzer. So that was something that was new in October of 2021. And of course, in 2022, actually in the beginning of the year, the release of the greenhouse gas reports, which Paul will speak to later on, but also the community voting to approve the electric bus and van. So that's really exciting work. So when we think about school community, we think about leadership. And so of course, our board's leadership has really helped us to lead the way for all of the other work. And you'll see 2 policies mentioned there, and they have been in place. One was adopted in it was revised 2008, excuse me, and it was revised in twice in 2012 and 2016, and another was adopted in 2009. So you can see how long this work is going on. In terms of our faculty leadership, those leader positions that I mentioned, Steve's staff developer position, and then all the members of our sustainability and our schools committee. But then we think a lot about student leadership, and you'll hear from them this evening. So that Earthrise Sustainability Club at the high school, Meadow Ponds Recycling Matters Club. And this year we took a trip to a recycling plant in Stamford where our recycling goes. And our videography club came along and made an instructional video, which we'll show a little of tonight. So it was interesting because we had representation students from every school. And we started talking about like a district-wide green team. And wouldn't that be great? So we're trying to think about what that would look like for next year. But we feel like student leadership is really important in this area. And then we think about the larger community. And we were so fortunate tonight to be joined by some of our partners. So Bedford 2030, our Lewisboro Sustainability Committee members, and Sustainable Westchester. And so we thank you all for coming and supporting our work tonight. We also are part of the Climascope project. So we've been working with a consultant, Cheney Munson, and he is trying to create a site that curates different projects and work around sustainability for teachers and students at all levels. And actually some of our student work has been a part of that. So it's really interesting. They're leaders for others across the nation. And then in terms of curriculum, some of the work our curriculum integration leaders do
They develop an awareness of, for example, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. That's another context that gives us a lot of opportunity to solve the big problems in the world. Also, the Cloud Institute, which we mentioned earlier, they have standards and a framework, and also developing and sharing resources for teachers, connecting those teachers across the district, and working with that ClimateScope project and Cheney Munson. And in terms of professional learning, we've been offering opportunities for teachers to learn at superintendent's conference days, summer. There was last year in the summer, and then follow up in the fall and winter. There was an ongoing course called Designing Curriculum for Sustainability. So teachers could design a unit of study or even revise an existing unit of study and think about how they'd embed sustainable ideas into that work. Staff developers, consultants, and then just sharing, as you saw tonight, of teachers sharing their work and really spreading the good news. So we will begin to hear a little bit from each level, and we'll start with our elementary schools. So as we transition, so if you want to come on up, and thank you, Neil.
My pleasure.
Yes, and you can, if you want to just grab your name, grab
On
your
the
little name
table and
pen.
bring them over with you. That'd be great.
So before we hear from our elementary group, wanted to just mention that about this recycling road trip that we took. So this was back at the end of March, and Melissa, Steve, and Jim, before the students left, gathered everyone in the high school cafeteria and gave them a little mini lesson to kind of get their knowledge going. Like, what do you want to know about recycling? What do you think you know already? And what do you hope to learn? And so you can see a picture of that there, some of the charts they used. And then we went to the recycling plant. So it was really an interesting trip. I know I learned quite a bit. And it was great to have representation from each school. But Rich, if you wouldn't mind, we'll play maybe just about a minute of the video so you can see what the videography club put together.
Have you ever wondered where our recycling goes?
Thank you. So it was really interesting to see those really large bales of plastic and paper. And the manager at the plant was wonderful. He actually does this quite often for groups, and they have a little classroom, and they really helped us to understand the whole process from beginning to end. So that was really terrific. But with that, I will turn it over to Laura Monash, who's going to lead us in some discussion about the work that's happening at our elementary schools.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Laura Monash, and I am a school psychologist at Meadow Pond. I've actually been running this club for approximately 10 years. It started out informally by trying to help some students who are having some social difficulties during recess. They were gathered refundable bottles and cans around the school and donated the monies they got from them to the charities they chose. This gave them a positive activity and a sense of accomplishment. Thus, the name Recycling Matters came about. I've always had an appreciation for our environment. My awareness of the negative impact our societal actions were having on our planet grew, As I experienced poor air quality in Mexico City due to the lack of emissions controls when I was a freshman in college, to viewing firsthand the melting icebergs in Alaska in the late 90s. With the encouragement of Don Pomeroy, my assistant principal, who is a staunch environmentalist, it seemed like the time was right to start helping students understand the importance of taking care of our environment. The club provides an opportunity to become more knowledgeable on environmental issues, as well as helping other people who could benefit from the collection of gently used items such as clothing, games, or books, so they can use their financial resources on other matters. The club provides a venue for the students to develop a greater sense of self-worth and the realization that they can make a difference. For me, it's a win-win as the club addresses both social emotional learning and sustainability. I am proud of my club members for learning about the impact we as a society are having on our planet and educating both students and adults alike on how to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Please hear a few words from 3 of the members. Ava, would you like to start?
Good evening. My name is Ava Rose, and I decided to join the Recycling Matters Club because I wanted to learn more about sustainability and helping our beautiful planet so I can teach and help others to learn how to respect our planet correctly. Before I joined, I didn't have much experience with helping the environment. However, now my thoughts on sustainability are much different than they have ever been before. By joining the Recycling Matters Club, I've made so many videos on reducing waste, such as donating apples and carrots to a local rescue called Rising Star for the Meadow Pond Report, which is our daily news program. Also, I've made posters regarding monthly collections to reuse items such as toys, books, and stuffed animals. I've met so many people along the way, and I've even got to go on a field trip to the recycling facility in Stamford, Connecticut. That field trip taught me so much about where to throw your trash away, where it goes, and even what happens to it. And all that I learned, I brought back to Meadow Pond and shared it with the grades during their lunch periods by presenting a PowerPoint. To finalize my speech today, I would just like to say that the Recycling Matters Club really helped me because it gave me an opportunity to learn more about our planet and sustainability. And I don't know what I would have done if I haven't joined it. Thank you to Dr. Monash and my fellow club members for making my experience in the Recycling Matters Club the greatest that they could ever be. And now, as I go off to the middle school, my goal is to leave behind some of my great experiences and to continue educating students in the middle school. Thank you again to all of the amazing people that guided and helped me throughout my experience in Meadow Pond. I will truly miss everyone, and I will never stop thinking about the 2021-2022 Recycling Matters Club.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Fiona Lee. I joined the Recycling Matters Club because I wanted to learn how I could help the environment. After I was in the club for about 2 months, I decided that I wanted to teach students and adults about recycling. So I got 2 of my peers who wanted to do the show with me, and we created the GAF show. GAF stands for our initials. The GAF show was our monthly show on our school news, the Meadow Pond Report. On the GAF show, we talked about different topics such as ocean pollution, air pollution, and Earth Day. The GAF show has been very helpful because it teaches students how to help the environment and how to recycle even if they are not in the Recycling Matters Club. I was also very lucky and had the opportunity to go to a recycling facility in Stamford, Connecticut. I learned a lot about what happens to trash after you throw it out and how I can reuse certain items. Thank you for listening. I look forward to learning more as I continue my journey of sustainability. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nola Hargrove, and I joined the Recycling Matters Club because I was interested in helping the environment, teaching others about sustainability and reusing, reducing, and recycling. Before I joined, I had no clue what sustainability was and how recycling worked. Now, some of my favorite parts of the Recycling Matters Club are making videos, such as being aware of how you can help the planet, tips on gardening, and a lot more. I also got to make posters about our monthly collections. For example, gently used school supplies, books, and Halloween candy. I got to meet new people with common interests and, most importantly, help the environment. As I move on to middle school, my goal is to join another club to keep on reducing, reusing, and recycling. To finish off my speech, I want to give a big thank you to Dr. Monash, who has been one of the most amazing and kind teachers at Meadow Pond Elementary School. Another thanks to my fellow club members of the Recycling Matters Club. Thank you for guiding me and helping me through all of my elementary school. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we're still mid-presentation
Yeah.
and we have a lot to cover, but please allow us to pause to say we are so proud of each of you and so pleased to know that you were able to find one another and to share your interest, your curiosity, your passion, and that Dr. Monash is able to bring you all together and provide learning opportunity and opportunities for you to teach your fellow students and to emerge as leaders in this work. It really is so inspirational and hopeful. And we thank you for taking the time to develop such coherent statements to help provide insight into the experiences that you've had through this opportunity. Really, you've helped us learn a lot about your student perspective and your passion and commitment for our planet, and the reality that you were able to also find community with one another, which is really terrific. And thank you.
Thank you.
So while we're transitioning and our middle school students will join us, Rich, maybe you could play the video. So we had one of the elementary things that's been happening is the kindergarten students are doing a persuasive writing unit. And they've used sustainability as a lens. And one of the things they did was create a video called Cleaner, Greener Meadow Pond. So we'll just show a few minutes of that. Rich, I don't know if you can make it a little bit louder.
This is the PTO we used to give to, and we need more gardens and more trees for our environment. It's not safe to cut down trees. We need more trees and more gardens. It gives us health and more and exercise. It gives us happy and it gives us food. Jamie and Dominica. Thank you so much. Bye.
KLSD community. Can you please help us? We would like to plant a garden along the path outside of the kindergarten classrooms. It would look nice and pretty. The flowers will give food and homes to animals. We should also put up a fence to stop people from stepping on and picking the flowers. We will take care of it by picking out the weeds. Thank you for listening. We hope you will help us. From KH.
Dominica and Jamie, what do you have there?
A petition.
And what are you guys petitioning for?
More trees and more gardens.
Oh, and why do you think we need more trees and more gardens?
Cutting down trees and it's not good for the environment and the earth. So that's why we need more trees and more gardens.
Great.
More gardens, more trees, more gardens, more trees, more gardens, more trees, more gardens.
Wow.
Thanks, Rich. So you can see there's several other sections to this video. They talk about composting, electricity. Some of our kindergarten students were here this evening talking about electricity and how they want to conserve electricity at Meadow Pond, but 7 o'clock was their limit. So, so we will move on to hear from.
Mary, is that video available on the website somewhere, or where could we get that video?
So yes, I know all of the kindergarten teachers sent out an email to the kindergarten parents saying, are you okay if we put this out? So we can put out the link.
That'd be
And you
wonderful.
can see all of the different sections. It was
Thank you.
really
Thank you.
adorable. Yeah.
Thank you.
And so now I'm joined by Melissa Brady and our middle school students, Elena, Caitlin, and Grayson.
And also Natalie.
Oh, and Natalie. I'm sorry, Natalie.
I'm going to share your microphone. Natalie was able to join us at the last minute. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to introduce Natalie properly. So hi, I'm Melissa Brady. I teach family and consumer science at the middle school. And as Mary said earlier, I'm also one of the sustainability integration leaders for the district, primarily focusing on the elementary level. And tonight I wanted to introduce you to just 4 of the many students who this year participated in a food literacy unit as part of their coursework. And the focus of the unit was to identify a theme where that food and the connection, and explore the connection between food and either community wellness, or sustainability. And so the students that are here with us tonight chose sustainability as their area of interest. And they developed inquiry questions, they did research, explored the topic, and then they were tasked with choosing a purpose for their work. So these students all chose to educate others. They selected an audience for their work and a type of media. And so I have representing today, and Ainsley is also here with us. She was one of the students outside in the foyer. Ainsley, if you could please pass out the books. So I think we'll have Elena and Caitlin speak first. They are 8th graders who I was fortunate enough to have for 2 years in a row. It was a gift for me. And they created this beautiful, imaginative story, which I'll have them explain to you. Their audience was the elementary school, and I was fortunate enough to get some help from the district, thank you, to print the book so that each of the schools can have one for their school library, and people can read it and share it. So Elena and Caitlin will speak about their book. And then we also have Grayson and Natalie, who chose a different media format. They decided to make a movie, and I'll have them explain their audience and their media choice and what they were talking about. Wonderful. So are you ready, girls? Thank you. And thank you very much for being here. I'm just so proud and delighted that the students took this unit to heart and put so much effort into it.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'd just like to say 2 things before I begin. One of them is me and Elena. Unfortunately, we apologize because we didn't come extremely prepared because we knew about this a little late. And also, I'd like to give a huge thanks to Miss Brady because she's the one that made this all possible. I mean, me and Elena didn't think we were going to get an actual book. We just thought it was going to be a project, but Miss Brady made it all possible. And so I'm going to be talking about what our book is about. So our book is called Space Kid from Planet Nebula, and it revolves around our protagonist, Space Kid, who was sent on a mission to go to Earth and try Earth food for the first time. And unfortunately, Space Kid does not make the best decisions in choosing the food that he buys. And he chooses this extremely not healthy for people and the environment as well. And when buying it, he influences all the children in the store because they think that he looks like all cool and stuff. And they wanted to buy it too. So in the end, the children buy the food. And 10 years later, Space Kid comes back to Earth to see how the children that he met in the store were doing. And he comes back to a ruined place of like it was just extremely no
barren
vegetation or yeah. And there's many factories that were making these chips because after the children had bought the chips, they told all their friends like these chips are awesome. We got it from a space boy or something like that. And they started to make more of them, which caused a lot of pollution. And while exploring the area around Space Kid, he found this time machine, which he used to fix his mistakes in the past and go back in time to try and influence the kids into making a better decision and buying a food that is better for them and the environment. And when he leaves, he knows that he's done the right decision and that he's fixed the mistakes that he's made. And now the planet today is much greater than it was when he went back after buying the chips. So, Elena, do you want to talk
Yeah,
about?
sure. Thank you, Caitlin. Our target audience was, as Ms. Brady said, elementary school students, and we wanted to show them in a way that they could obviously comprehend in a children's book. And we wanted to show them that you can make sustainable actions and have an impact on the earth, even though you might be very young. We also want to show them by Space Kid not making the right decision, that it can have consequences on the earth, and you do have an influence, even though you're only in elementary school. And I think it was a good decision because it was a challenge trying to come up with a story plot that would keep a kid intrigued and not bore them, such as a space-time machine or a spaceship. And we had to work through it and think of a bunch of different components. Our storyline did change many times throughout the process. But I think it was helpful, and we did learn a lot about sustainability and about how to create a project that could have a big influence. And we came up with a book, and it's a book that hopefully is going to get put in the elementary schools that kids could read.
Wonderful. Thank you both. That's great. It's beautiful, and the illustrations are beautiful as well.
That was all Caitlin.
We have a real artist in Caitlin. And then we have Grayson and Natalie, whose media choice was a movie. And I wish we had time to see it, but I know we don't. It's extremely creative. Maybe we can add the link to the website or something. You want to talk about your movie?
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so basically our movie news report. Well, our movie, we structured it like a news report because our target audience were elementary school kids, and we thought, the upbeat kind of fast-paced news report would help keep their attention. And we thought it would be entertaining and a cool idea to show the impact that livestock has on the environment. Because like cows and like a bunch of other animals, they like burp and fart a lot. So that's really bad for the environment because like it contributes to greenhouse gases a lot, which obviously, that's climate change. And yeah, it's really bad. Yeah, would you like to say?
Okay, so we also worked with another student, David, who can't come here today. I came into the project late. I switched groups, and I was worried that I wasn't gonna be up to date on everything, but I came in so easy, and I felt like the project, Grace and I have always been best friends, and this was so easy for us to do it together. And in the beginning, we had a plan, and once we started, we kept on going. It was like, let's add a cow, let's use this filter, let's use that filter. And we had so many great ideas that we were so excited to make. We chose as our audience Katona Elementary School because we both went there, and we decided to show it on their kind of like morning show called Good Morning KAS. And we also showed it for a home-based activity. Anything else? I don't know what else to say. I think that's it. Yeah.
Well done.
That was great.
We also have a third-party member who's not here with us today. Her name is Mitzi, and she also had a huge contribution to making our story come to life.
Her pictures on the back. The girls were thrilled that I put their pictures on the back.
Thank you. That was terrific. And I think you take for granted how well prepared you actually are. And there are things that we can hear and feel proud of with respect to the way that you're actually bringing skills from other classes and talents that you already have to the work of sustainability and to raising awareness. So for example, the artwork that we commented on earlier, but also the ready use of words such as protagonist, plot, and audience and target audience. I think your ELA teachers would be so excited to think that not only are you encountering and understanding these concepts, but then you're actually taking ownership and utilizing them to prepare your own book. So we really thank you. And I'm sorry we weren't able to see the film. If we put it up on the website, we would love to watch it. And you're experimenting with different mediums, and it's phenomenal. So we really thank you. And that was delightful. Thank you very much. And you're a great role model. Thank you, Mrs. Brady.
Oh, thank you. And I think we'll move on to our high school. So Steve Zoller, our K-12 staff developer, and Carolina Cerna. As I mentioned, Carolina is the incoming president of the Earthrise Sustainability Club, and she's joined us at several of our sustainability in our schools meetings as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. I'm Carolina. As Mary, it should have wonderful introduction, but I am the new elected president of the Earthrise Club. And just to go into a little bit of what we've done this year, we essentially kind of broke up our agenda or our targets into 3 separate groups: changing consumer habits, resource reduction, and sustainable awareness. How we targeted these goals was essentially for changing consumer habits. We decided to have a sale of DIY all natural skincare products, and we did really well with that. We were able to raise over $500, sold 36 lip balms and 36 lip salves, no, skin salves, apologies. And for our sustainable awareness target, we decided to essentially kind of spread information about recycling and our recycling system to the student body at John Jay High School. And additionally, we were able to go down, well, we weren't able to go down, but we were able to film ourselves reading sustainable books to elementary school students. And we got a lot of good feedback from that. And then for our target of resource reduction, we had, this was kind of our main event, was being combined with Tree Plenish, which is another organization. Essentially, what our goal was to sell 260 trees to offset the 2.6 million pieces of paper that our school produces annually. We were able to almost double that goal by selling 463 saplings. We had a bunch of different types of saplings, and those are some pictures of the event, of people there and getting their saplings.
Carolina, maybe if we pause for a minute, we can show the Tree Plenish video.
Yeah.
So this was the video that was kind of the promotional video for the Tree Plenish event. And some of Carolina's peers are in this as well.
We are Earthrise, and we are the Sustainability Club at John Jay High School. We reform climate perspective, policy, and practices in our district.
We conduct local projects and fundraisers. We educate our community K through 12, and we run a club column, Instagram, and more.
Through all these environmental efforts, we hope to drive long-lasting environmental change. We are hosting a Tree Plenish event, which provides 3 types of trees for us to come together as a community to plant.
Through Tree Plenish, we will offset our school's annual paper consumption by meeting our goal of 260 saplings.
Our Tree Plenish Day is Saturday, April 23rd, the day after Earth Day.
All you have to do on the day of the event is come to John Jay High School and pick up your tree. You have a choice of 3 saplings: a red maple, a flowering dogwood, and a common apple tree. We need your help, though.
Purchase your sapling for $5 in advance before the deadline of March 20th, 2022.
If you can't purchase a sapling, you can still come to our event to volunteer and help distribute them. I hope to see you there. If you have any additional questions whatsoever, do not hesitate to reach out to the leaders or email us with anything. Tree planting!
Thanks, Rich.
Yeah, and so that's essentially what our club was able to accomplish this year. We plan on doing Tree Plenish for many years to come, and hope to continue our focusing on our targets and doing our monthly projects to make sure that we're making progress to our goal of making our community better through our club.
Thank you, Carolina. So my name's Steve Zoller. I've been in the district 7 years, and this is my 8th year and within a different role. I'm a staff developer for STEAM and sustainability. And so I'm working with K through 12 teachers throughout the district to start integrating sustainability into their curriculum. I guess I got interested, my daughter actually just recently graduated, and when she started her program at University of Vermont for environmental studies, it was kind of like an eye-opener for me. And I think what I'd like to point out to all the students that are sitting here is that sometimes the tree doesn't far fall from the apple. So what I mean by that is that you have very powerful voices and can make a big change in the community, starting in your own homes. And so that's how I got interested in it. I then took a course at the Children's Environmental Literacy Foundation. And what I realized was that I was pretty knowledgeable about sustainability. I just wasn't doing anything about it. And so my goal in the district really is to create agents for change. And I think in the different things that you've seen today, you've seen that there's agents for change that are reaching out to the community to impact what's happening in the environment. And so I'll continue to work with teachers. One example was the pollinator garden. So I worked closely with Jill Hirschfeld. And so the idea was she was going to handle the pollinator garden, but as part of it, we wanted to make an educational board. And so we worked with the kids to actually do all the construction, starting with digging the hole, pouring the cement, and actually they designed the display board, and then we built it. So trying to tie it into different classes just to make it more exciting for the kids and to be more place-based, so we actually can use the community to actually create change through a product that's created.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, and that was a real collaboration between Steve and Jill and Paul, getting all of the materials together. So it was really great. So thank you.
Wonderful. Carolina, just even a subset of those goals seems like it would have been a lot for your club to have accomplished in this year. It's very impressive. I don't know whether looking back over the year, there are certain activities that you feel you would want to expand and perhaps grow next year, and others that you feel, less successful. Do you have ideas for how you see the club evolving going forward?
Yeah, I definitely think that it'd be really nice to go to the elementary schools, because what we wanted to do was go to the elementary schools and read those books in front of them and kind of host an assembly adjacent to that. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that because of restrictions, but we definitely want to be able to go visit elementary schools and just other schools in our district to make sure that we're not only making change for us, but we're role models for them so that they know that they're able to make change as well.
That's great to hear. We hope we can help you with that as conditions continue to improve. Yeah, that's really great. Thank you.
And you can see on the slide, just a listing there of several other projects. Many of them were at some of the tables at the celebration tonight, but our humanities research students, our science research students, and hydroponics is interesting. It's in our principles of engineering classroom, but also Melissa Brady has it in the family and consumer science classroom at the middle school. We thought about bringing it up here this evening, but it was a little too delicate to move. So, but you did see some of the greens from the hydroponics in the middle school served tonight.
I can touch on the Humry if we
Sure,
have time.
Please.
Well, right now I'm in Humry 2, but basically in Humry 1, we have a basically almost semester dedicated to a specific topic, depending on what the teacher wants to do at that point. And one topic that has been continued the past few years is sustainability. In the hallway, there's a couple of students who had their Humry 1 sustainability presentations out. But I remember last year is very interesting because we read this book that was really impactful by Naomi Klein, who really just opened our eyes to what climate change could be on a more, I guess you could say, systemic scale. And it was also very interesting to see so many different ways that my class was able to go about it. I specifically focused on sustainable urban developments, and which eventually led to my Humry 2 topic. And in Humry 2, what we essentially do is we spend the whole year dedicated to finishing a research paper of about 30 to 40 pages. And my topic ended up being sustainable architecture. I don't know if any of you were able to see my poster, but I had my poster out there. And it was just not only enjoyable to just share my desire of building sustainably, but also there was other individuals there who also share the same desire to share their thinking of ways to change systemically to make life more sustainable and to make certain decisions more just sustainable. And I think Humry has been a great place for students to share that.
Thank you for making that connection for us and for explaining the path from Humry 1 to Humry 2. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so as we transition, Paul Christensen will join us. So if you remember, we focused on 3 different aspects of sustainability or in this framework that we're using. So we talked about community, we've talked about curriculum, and now we're going to talk more about campus.
Wonderful, thank you.
So Paul is going to speak to us tonight about the greenhouse gas emissions and some of the NYSERDA benchmarking reports that we have, as well as our facilities. And then Danelle is going to help us learn a little more about transportation.
Wonderful, thank you.
Good evening. Operations serves the board and the students, and we help become the foundation so these programs can build. So the first thing I'm going to share with you is some new legislation that will affect all of us in New York State. The New York State Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, CLCPA. We tend to just call it the Climate Act of 2019. This is going to impact building codes residentially and commercially, and it builds on almost a decade of leadership from New York State and the latest climate science, setting up rigorous goals across the state. And this slide shows the highlights. A 40% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, an 85% reduction in the same gases and carbon neutral by 50, 185 trillion BTU reduction of energy by 2025. That's approximately a 23% reduction in energy used by all buildings in New York State, and 100 fossil-free electricity by 2040. These are big goals, but there's some good news, because from 2008 onward, this school district undertook some pretty big steps. So could I have the next slide, please? This slide shows greenhouse gas emissions that have been monitored since the school year 2008 and 9 through a third party that was hired through the Sustainability Committee to audit the inventory of gases, a very comprehensive study. Not just emissions from our school boilers, but commuting cars, our waste stream, our water use, very comprehensive. And every 5 years, we've repeated the study. Now you can see in the chart, there's a red line that represents that first goal, 40% reduction of greenhouse gases. And that was, remember, that was 2030. Our school district is almost there. And then at the bottom, you can see the great big goal, 85% reduction. That's a target. That's 2050. We have a little time, but we're very anxious to get there. This progress is supported through initiatives that the board has undertook through this last 12-year period. Some very comprehensive, some having to do with energy purchase, some having to do with energy performance contracting, and some having to do with good sense initiatives that everyone knows about: changing lighting out, using lighting controls. The easiest way to save energy is turn it off. We practice all of those things. But greenhouse gas only represents one piece of the picture. Total energy utilization. In other words, what does a building use? It's necessary to take advantage of understanding that metric to hold against the progress. So we take advantage of a program that's offered to us by NYSERDA to benchmark our buildings. And we do so also about once every 5 years. Now, what they do is they use an EPA scoring 1 to 100. With a score of 75, a building qualifies for the potential being designated Energy Star. We all know Energy Star from buying appliances and how things are scored. And the higher the score indicates, the more efficient the appliance will be. All of our schools average a total of 80. The national average for schools is 63. This is a significant step towards that 2050 goal of 85% reduction. And we're going to be working on it over the coming years to reduce fossil fuel use in our schools. Next slide, please. Facilities is responsible for large areas of the operations and maintenance of the building. And I just wanted to touch briefly on some of the techniques we use. In operation and maintenance, we utilize sustainable practices across all areas that we supervise. In building maintenance, we use total cost of ownership, taking into considering energy use and life cycle analysis in our decision-making process in terms of purchasing. We track 4 waste streams: composting, recycling, non-recyclable trash, and building materials, taking care to weigh them and keep records. We monitor our energy use and utilize third-party studies for benchmarking and greenhouse gas emissions. We track our water use and quality. We are phasing in, replacing gas-powered tools with electric tools and equipment for our landscaping and maintenance use. In New York State, education has very rigorous standards for green purchasing that we meet or exceed in all of the maintenance supplies, including waxes and hand sanitizers and all the things that you see that are used throughout the school. Next slide, please. Solar, wind, and powered lighting. Across our district, we have solar, wind, and powered lamp poles. Much like the iconic windmill we are familiar with throughout rural America, that pumps water out of the ground, ours pump electricity into a battery that provides the sole source of power utilized by the LED lamp and other equipment mounted on these poles. These poles are completely off the grid, and they have become the center of case studies for renewable energy for our students.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say that Paul has really become a celebrity, especially at Meadow Pond, where I think maybe some of the students here have interviewed Paul and videotaped it. So yeah, we are so thankful for all of Paul's knowledge and expertise. And he's sharing that now with lots and lots of students.
I got the petition and I got letters and I responded. Thank you very much. We're going to work together.
And
great.
Even this evening out in the gallery, we had 2 students in Mrs. Emmig's class whose presentation was really an homage to the work that you're doing. There was a drawing of the wind turbine, and one student had a model of a piece of a solar panel and told me about the process related to the battery and basically how the wind turbines are working. So clearly the message that you are sending to our students and the education and the educational benefit afforded by some of these infrastructural improvements is, it's inspirational, and it's taking effect, it's taking root. So thank you.
Yeah, our campus has really become a learning tool, which is so wonderful to see.
Great.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
And I'm going to invite
Thank you.
Paul to stay because we're going to speak facilities in a little bit. So might as well just come.
Sorry,
You're
Paul.
both here. But next up, we have some exciting advancements with as it relates to transportation and electric vehicles. So back in May, the voters authorized us to purchase our first electric bus. This is a pilot program. Thank you. It's a pilot program. It's one bus. We are working with our vendors and state contractors on the best way to purchase the vehicle. We do understand that just like other cars, there is some purchasing delays with getting that delivered. So as soon as we get an update, we will share that with the board on an anticipated date when we can see the electric vehicle. One thing that goes along with the electric bus is the infrastructure towards charging the electric bus. And we will begin working on that and have that set up prior to the bus being delivered. But also exciting is Paul's department and my department have been working with a vendor to do charging stations for commuter and student electric vehicles. So that will be coming to the middle school and the high school campus. hopefully shortly. So next slide. So what is our next steps in the journey? The campus will continue to meet and hopefully exceed the expectations of that CLCPA or the Climate Act program. The sustainability members are representative on our Board of Ed Facilities Committee. Later on tonight, you'll be hearing about our Facilities Committee. So we'll have some exciting news to share as it relates to sustainability. And then we hope to strengthen and expand our community involvement. You saw Bedford 2030 was here. And then Mary mentioned in previous slides some of the other community organizations we've been working with. So we will continue to do that and look for other opportunities with the community. And then, of course, we'll continue to expand our curriculum work that will impact students at every level, and also expand any professional learning that we can do with our teachers and faculty to help support sustainability. With that, I'll turn this over back to Mary.
Yeah, and I just wanted to end by thanking our community members who serve on our Board of Ed Sustainability Subcommittee, Janet Harcum, Mark Thielking, and Stephen Weissmuller, and also to our board members, to Rory, to Catherine, and to Marjorie. So thank you for your sustained commitment to sustainability. But it's been a wonderful journey, and we feel like we're just getting started.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Paul. Thank you, Dr. Monash, Mrs. Brady, Mr. Zoller, and the teachers who were with us earlier out in the gallery, and for those who are still with us today, our staff and administration. I know for years we talked about, how could we try to take some of the sustainability efforts and make them more systemic and really think about a culture of commitment to sustainability that wasn't just infrastructure or just a pocket of learning here and there. And I think tonight we really are able to feel, it's palpable, the manner in which this is becoming systemic and the traction that you're really developing at every level of the school district. And it's so exciting to see the involvement of our students and to see our students as spokespeople for this work. They looked awfully comfortable up here at the table. They're doing an amazing job, so articulate and so well educated and knowledgeable. And it really was a pleasure to see this come together. Thank you, Mary, for pulling this together. You pulled from many different dimensions of the district, and we really appreciate the opportunity to have an overview and also a celebration. We all needed it, and it was terrific, delightful. And thank you all to everybody who contributed to that. I'm happy to turn it over to my board colleagues for some questions, comments.
And we have a handheld microphone, and if our presenters would like to, either come up to the table or roll their chairs forward, they'll be available for your questions as well.
Wonderful, thank you.
I mean, Marjorie, maybe I'll just have a quick comment. I mean, for me, this is some of the most important work that we do. And obviously we do a lot of important work at the board table, but saving our planet is probably chief amongst all of the work that we do. And that's why I was encouraged to join the board subcommittee in the first place. And when I joined the board subcommittee, it was evident to me that there were sort of two branches of sustainability that we were thinking about. One was the really good work that Paul had already been undertaking with the help of Mark and Steve and Janet and others that had been going on since 2009. The other was the opportunity to develop the thinking of the 3,000 students in our district. And at the time, I felt like that was kind of taking a back seat to some extent to all the great infrastructure work that we were doing. But it really just warms my heart and gives me such hope for the future, having seen both the exhibits today before the meeting and to see our young students show up in the way that they did and articulate themselves so clearly. And what struck me most was the opportunities that they're taking to educate other students in the district, the middle schoolers going down to the elementary school, the elementary kids educating and moving up to the middle school and hopefully doing the great work there too. I mean, just absolutely fantastic. So I just wanted to say I really felt like we had such great momentum within the sustainability subcommittee, but it hadn't really been articulated clearly. I didn't feel like the school district had really gotten a sense of what was happening. And more, I felt like the community maybe wasn't aware, but events like tonight and seeing our students and listening to everything that they've said really, truly gives me hope. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody involved.
Thank
Really
you, Rory.
fantastic.
I really, I appreciate that response, and that's so nicely observed. I couldn't agree more. And I think I would only add thank you to our central office administration for developing what I think could be characterized as a distributed leadership model, where we now have other leaders among us who are really dedicated to this and who are inspiring our students and collaborating. And we couldn't do it without you, obviously. It's, you know, in large part a reflection of your commitment to this work. And we're very lucky to have leaders on our staff who feel equally passionate and who feel urgency and are inspired to do this work with our students. So thank you
The
for
impact
sharing
is
that.
very obvious. Yeah, it's
Yeah, it really is. Thank you. Thank you all. And thank you to our committee members, all of whom are here with us tonight in support. And we really appreciate that. So good to see you in person, all of you. And thank you. Yeah. Any other comments, questions for our students or the committee? Yeah.
I don't have a question. I think it's interesting to think about the educational process of our students, and sort of we think about how does math evolve over a course of 13 years, and how does reading and all the sort of core subjects. And I think it's so interesting to see some of our students that were here tonight were juniors. And I remember from when they started the composting program in elementary school, and it was a new program, and they were really excited about it and really learning about reducing the amount of garbage that was going into our trash. And I don't remember the numbers from sort of those first years, but they were really proud and excited about the fact that they were composting. And it became this great thing at the end of lunch. You know, you got to be the kid that picked the garbage, you know, and made sure that things that shouldn't be in the compost weren't in it. And, you know, I see sort of that developmental learning where now, you know, when we hear from our high school students thinking about sort of the more global aspects of that, they really are using that foundational knowledge, and it's growing. And so I just feel really excited to see that formalized more and spread more through the district, because I think we will really see that impact grow over time. So it's really awesome. So thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Yes. Well, yes, please, Liz.
Just one quick comment. I think you called it out earlier, Marjorie, about the students using all of these concepts from ELA and then writing a book about environmental stewardship. And I thought that was such an interesting thought. We've learned a lot about cross-cutting concepts and how the curriculum is changing and New York State standards are changing. And this was such a nice illustration of that, and how those, you know, foundational subjects that are taught in every school can be used then to support other initiatives and really deepen learning. And these students were so wonderful in demonstrating exactly how that happens. So thank you all.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you.
That reminds me, in terms of cross current, I saw something in one of the presentations outside that I don't think I've ever seen before or thought I would ever see. I saw an actual practical use of trigonometry. Apologies to any math teachers, but I still remember SOHCAHTOA. I don't know what it means, but I remember that. So it was one of the presentations around, you know, a more sustainable house, and how you can block the sun at the right times and let it in at the right times. And right there in front of everything was the trigonometry to show the math. So
Wonderful. Thank you, Bill. Well, believe it or not, we have even more exciting work ahead. And we thank you to our students, our families for joining us. We will not take offense if anybody feels that it's getting late or toward bedtime. So we're going to go through yet another transition. We're going to, again, thank all of the members of the Sustainability in Our Schools Committee, and thank our students, and to you, Mary, for pulling this together and for all of your leadership in this area. And what a terrific presentation. Thank you all so very much. We really appreciate it. Happy summer. Thank you. And we'll just take a second here to regroup, but we are about to turn our presentation, pardon me, we're about to turn our attention to our next presentation, which is an opportunity to hear from our Facilities Committee. Very exciting to be able to update the Board of Education and our community on the work of a committee that was comprised of administrators, staff members, and quite a few members of our community who volunteered an extraordinary amount of time, not only in meetings, but in building tours, and took the time to really become very well educated about our infrastructure and our facilities.
I have them. I got them.
No problem.
Try to be quiet about that.
And I'm happy to turn it over to Liz and Danelle, and welcome to our guests. And thank you for being here tonight and for your patience. We realize it's gotten a bit late, and we really appreciate your willingness to join us for this very exciting opportunity.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you all for staying. I would just like to start by saying this has been a long and productive work that we have done with this committee. We are joined tonight by Rick Gansey from CMA and Russ Davidson from KG&D. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to present the work of the Facilities Committee tonight. We are going to share our recommendations for a bond that focuses on improving educational experiences, security, and infrastructure. I'm proud of the work that the committee did to put forth a proposal that enables us to make these important community investments while keeping a very close eye on the bottom line. So I think it's really important to introduce this whole concept by reminding everybody that investing in schools is really investing in our future. Just a couple of quotes that I found really spoke to me, and Russ actually shared them with me. You can't expect children to learn 21st century skills in schools built for the 1950s. Ironically, some of our schools were actually built in the 1950s. We need schools designed for the 21st century success. And then let's see, we are currently preparing our students for jobs that don't yet exist using technologies that haven't yet been invented in order to solve problems that we don't even know are problems yet. I feel very confident after listening to our students that we're going to be okay. But we need to create the best environment for them to get there. So if we could just go to the next slide. There's a lot of good reasons to invest in facilities. There are positive impacts, both direct and indirect, from investing in school facilities. Direct impacts like improved air and water quality, better lighting, more comfortable classroom environments, and outdoor spaces all positively impact students and staff. Additionally, indirect impacts like more efficient systems could realize operational efficiencies. Better teaching environments are good for teacher retention, and high-quality amenities accessible to the community and a high-performing district can lead to increases in property values. Now, do you want to do the committee chart?
Sure. So back in October, the board decided to create the Facilities Committee. And based on the Facilities Committee, we met and had a charge similar to how we have charges in our other committees. So the Facility Committee's charge this year was to review KLSD's 5-year capital plan in conjunction with other facilities, learning needs and opportunities identified by administration to consider options for future facilities, maintenance and enhancements. And then the committee also studied the feasibility of various financing options to support the needs and opportunities identified through the course of this review. The committee was composed of Mr. Selesnik, myself, the director of O&M, Paul Christensen, who we heard from earlier today, Russ Davidson. Our trustees on the committee was Liz, Rory, and Marjorie. And then we also had a handful of community members, which we'll mention towards the end of the presentation. But the community was well represented. We had Increase Miller, KES, Meadow Pond, middle school and high school members on our committee. Our approach was to first look at the building condition survey. This happened back in March of 2021. KG&D came and presented our building condition survey. This is a requirement from SED that every 5 years we take a look at our buildings. And then priorities are assigned based on work that needs to be done. Priority number ones are health and safety priorities. It's important to note that we did not have any priority number ones in our 5-year BCS. However, we did have priorities 2 through 4, and that was part of what the committee was reviewing were those certain priorities. Based on the building condition survey, the board then adopted what's known as a 5-year capital plan. Since the building condition survey is done every 5 years, we develop a plan of how we are going to address those issues within a 5-year span. When we took a look at the total cost of everything on those priorities 1 through 4, it was over $121 million. By the time we looked at all those costs, O&M had already started working on some needs that required immediate attention, and $11 million was identified and completed by our in-house operations and maintenance department. So based on that, then the committee took a look at that 5-year capital plan and prioritized and looked at remaining projects that needed to be done. So with that, we partnered with KG&D. Russ Davidson is here today, and I'm going to turn over this part of the presentation to him.
So I was asked to talk a little bit about our firm and relationship with Katona. So first of all, thank you for your continued trust in our firm. We've been reselected, I think, 4 or 5 times by Katona through a competitive RFP process and a qualifications-based selection. So we're thrilled to have again been reselected. We have done a lot of major projects, and my first major school project was here in 1995, and then again in 2003. And those projects were completed on time and on budget, and actually both were received design awards from the American Institute of Architects. We did do your most recent building conditions survey, and the team of architects and engineers really know your buildings well. And we have a great relationship with Paul and his team, and Mike LaVoy, so does a great job with your HVAC work. We're just for a little background, we're right here in Mount Kisco. We're a regional leader in educational facilities design. We design and get constructed about $50 million worth of K-12 facilities a year. So some of our school district clients include Somers, Chappaqua, Scarsdale, Pleasantville, Bronxville, Yonkers, Greenwich, Darien. But our longest standing K-12 client is Katona Lewisboro. So we're very proud of that. We actually have 4 or 5 employees who are parents of students. And we just hired a summer intern, and I asked her to start to work on some imagery for Increase Miller, and she said, I went there. So we have another college intern who is now drawing up her elementary school. We played a role in leadership. Me personally, I've testified on school safety before the Department of Homeland Security. I also convened a conference in New York City with national leaders on social infrastructure, including public schools. Because what happens with a lot of social infrastructure, library and public schools is every community deals with these problems as if they are unique. But when the subtotal, if you could aggregate that, public schools are the single largest building type in the country. And New York State, being settled so long ago, has on average the oldest schools in the country. So what you're going through is actually very common. But because school districts are disaggregated, it all seems unique, and it all seems like each individual struggle. It is not unusual. And then a lot has changed in school design. We look back at things in 1995 and say, we wouldn't do it that way. It does change, but I would say with the advent of these things, these individual devices in front of everybody, except for me, maybe, the schoolhouse has changed, and we've been leaders in that. We also do a lot of not-for-profit work, some of which you may know, the Jacob Burns Media Arts Lab, first LEED Gold building in Westchester. I heard all your great talk on sustainability. We've been leaders in sustainability for a long time. And we do other work for not-for-profits, including your new mascots, the Wolf Conservation Center down the road and the Community Center of Northern Westchester.
I just also wanted to expand a little bit more on the first point that Russ made, that we did go out for an RFP process for an architect. KG&D is our architect on record, but every 5 years, based on the state comptroller's recommendation, we do go out for what's called a request for proposals, or some people think of them similar to bids, but they're for services. So Russ's firm did come in very competitively, and the board, I believe, just at the last meeting, had appointed them as our architect of record.
So we used some kind of, the committee came together and coalesced around some guiding principles. We do have to balance a lot of competing priorities when we think about how we choose these projects, what's important to the community, what's important for student experience. We felt that these priorities really spoke to us in terms of how we chose the priorities we did. One, it was, to be in support of the learning commitment and ensure that our student experience was as good as it possibly could be. So we focused on some real interesting and exciting program improvements across the district. We will see security enhancements at all buildings. We've kept a very close eye, I mentioned already, on fiscal responsibility. It's important that when a project like this comes up, we are careful with taxpayers' money, while at the same time really ensuring that we are investing for our future. And then also, last but obviously not least, I think there's somebody was talking about sustainability at some point earlier today. Sustainability was a big portion of our conversation. The bond that we're about to share with you has no new investment in fossil fuel burning technology. We have a pilot of a full geothermal heating and cooling system. And we are looking at doing as much building envelope upgrades and replacing a lot of windows and things like that that will achieve efficiencies for our operational costs. So here's the big reveal. The committee came together and decided to ask the community to support a $49.5 million bond. 45% of that spending would be for program improvements, very student-facing items, 48% for infrastructure. We do have some aging school buildings, and there are infrastructure requirements, things that need to be done. Despite not having any priority one, which are life and safety, those priority 2 and priority 3 can also be very important. And then finally, 7% of that total bond would be for security enhancements at all of our buildings. Some of the highlights of the bond would be a significant auditorium upgrade at John Jay High School, renovation and really a reimagining of the B wing at the high school. We did take the committee on tours of all of the buildings. We even went into some of the bathrooms. It's some of the less exciting work, but it was important to be seen. But we all went into the B wing, and you can see that it is a little ancient and ready for a big refresh. Also, the renovation of the Seawing science classrooms. I don't know if we mentioned this, but one person on our committee did actually go to high school here and sat in those rooms as they are right now. And so that is long overdue. We have the redesign and renovation of 2 step labs that are accessed actually just on the other side of this room, which is an exciting opportunity to revisit some educational space that is currently underutilized because it's just not as flexible as it could be. And there's some strange computer components.
I just wanted to add, Liz, since we said Seawing, those are our science classrooms, but just backing up B wings, that houses a lot of our foreign language classes.
Yes.
for those who aren't familiar with our building. Sometimes we get caught up in this wing and that wing. but
Right, it was-
B wing is our foreign language.
Our tours were really interesting because we do have a number of parents that just have elementary school students. And so they've never stepped foot in the middle school or high school before. So I think it was a lot of learning for everyone. And there's not a whole lot of cross pollination between the elementaries either. So I hadn't seen some of them before I started on the board myself. For John Jay Middle School, we have a very exciting renovation of the tech lab to makerspace, renovation of two of the unified arts classrooms, including home and career space, and a new greenhouse, which is really exciting because we just had Melissa Brady was talking about family and consumer science. I think that this is a nice joining of the two presentations. We have redesign and renovation we have another step lab at the middle school. It's a very centrally located, lovely classroom that's attached to the library that is also kind of fallen out of use. Air source heat pump, air conditioning for the southwest wing, which is where it gets very, very hot in the middle school. For the elementary schools, all three will see renovation and kind of redesign of the computer labs, which is very funny to think that is completely a thing of the past, as everybody has their own personal devices at this point. Increase Miller and Meadow Pond will see renovations and air conditioning of their wing spaces, which is just a great flexible space in those buildings. And I think maybe what Paul is most excited about is that Increase Miller will have the long overdue replacement of 2 modular classrooms with 3 new classrooms and 3 smaller kind of meeting rooms. It will help ease the space crunch, and I think that Paul will be very happy to retire those modulars. KES, as I kind of indicated earlier, will see a full geothermal, how am I saying this, Russ? HVAC, heating and cooling.
Heating and cooling system.
Heating and cooling system, which is very exciting. All of the equipment at KES needs to be replaced. And so the committee came to the decision that it didn't make sense to replace it with the same old stuff that we had before. So I think this is a really very exciting aspect to the bond project. All schools will receive security upgrades and priority infrastructure. There's a lot of smaller pieces, windows that need to be replaced, things that are out of code, doors, things like that. All of that does also fall into the bond.
And I just wanted to mention, we're excited about Increase Miller replacing some overdue modular classrooms. In our previous projects, Meadow Pond had some modular classrooms that were replaced. So this gets Increase Miller on par with Meadow Pond and some upgrades that had already occurred at Meadow Pond.
Thank you. Okay, so we can just go. So now I'm just going to walk you through the bond spend by school. So this is the entire thing. You'll see that there's 25% for John Jay High School. There's a lot of renovation there. This includes both infrastructure and program improvements. It was important to us and to the committee to ensure that there was parity among program improvements. So the elementary schools will all get the renovated makerspace attached to the libraries. But the differences that you see in figures here really represent more about infrastructure and different needs. At Increase Miller, obviously, there's construction costs with the new classrooms. So while this slide itself looks like things might not be quite even, we were very cognizant of making sure that all students would enjoy some upgrades in each of our buildings. And then by type, here's where we kind of break it out. We have program improvements and construction, which is about 45% of the total bond. Security, again, 7%, and then the rest is infrastructure. And I think that, we've come with a very, I think, exciting package that we can talk about. Russ is going to go through more school by school with inspirational images and all of the exciting stuff now that we've looked through some charts and tables. We try to make them as exciting as we could with colors, but there's only so much you can do. Do you want to go through this one?
Sure. So This slide, it just shows the benefits of our chosen investments. So program improvements will help utilize educational space and directly impact the student experience and opportunities. The construction at Increase Miller will ease space constraints and maintain program parity. And of course, the security, we're very excited about security enhancement at all buildings for student and staff safety. We spoke about the infrastructure. There is HVAC improvements for better air quality and additional cooling spaces to better foster a learning environment in those shoulder seasons. And then sustainability, as we talked about earlier, we're replacing some aging out equipment with newer technology to make the schools run more efficiently. And that we'll see most prominently at KES with the geothermal pilot program. And this is some highlights from John Jay High School. I think at this point, we're going to turn it officially over to Russ for some detailed with each school.
So we're not going to go through every room, but I am going to sort of get some of the highlights. John Jay High School, about 12.4. There's a good amount of program improvements here. Paul and his team have really handled a lot of the infrastructure and HVAC work at this building already, which is terrific. So that allows you to focus on the program improvements. This is your floor plan. And don't ask me why the buildings are lettered not in any particular order, because I don't know. But we were responsible for labeling L and Q because nobody wanted a building O. So the blue is new construction, the purple is renovated. One of the key things for security and also accessibility is to enclose the front entrance all the way across. So that'll have a new secure vestibule, and that'll provide an indoor pathway from the school to the gymnasium without going outdoors. So just in case you don't know, top left is your big wide corridor that connects the cafeteria to the main entrance. But then if you're trying to go indoors to the gym, you have to go through that very skinny 3-foot wide hallway on the right and past the main security booth, which sits in the main lobby. So you have good security, but this will make it much better with a security booth that's not a walkthrough and an indoor pathway that's not through an office. Seawing is shown here. It's sort of right across the hall from us. It used to be a separate building, so it's a comprehensive renovation of Seawing, which will include air conditioning through electric heat pump systems, replacement of casework. And speaking with the high school principal, even though these built rooms are a little bit smaller than standard, because of the diversity of program offerings, he needs this number of rooms. And a lot of these rooms are used for smaller class sizes, and the larger class sizes are handled in the new science labs in the Q building. And if you didn't know what it looked like, I will just briefly show these photos. These are recent. So this is, these are from the 1950s. I think that sink is definitely from the 1950s. And just sort of an inspiration. This is a rendering of what new science labs look like, so we can make it a lot brighter, update the casework. So we mentioned B building and we sort of next generation learning. So this was a slide that we use a lot just to explain that, schools used to be double loaded classrooms, lockers in the hallway. That was it. That was how they were been done since the 1940s and 50s. This actually could almost be a rendering of your B building. And this is how they need to be today, which is a variety of spaces, informal learning areas, connections to outdoor space, corridors that are active and not just passageways. And so that's what we looked at as a group for B building. This is some existing photos of B building. You can see with the pipes and the lockers in the hall. And the proposal is to actually open up B building and convert 4 classrooms to learning commons, to create small collaboration spaces, to link one of the learning commons to an outdoor classroom in the courtyard, to have more flexible furniture, obviously renovate them, replace the roof, air condition it, and a complete refresh. And, you know, it may or may not be the foreign language building at the end of the day. That's going to be a decision made by the administrators as they sort of rethink the assignments. But this will give you a really forward-thinking learning environment to use in a variety of ways. And just some of the inspiration, this is a learning commons that we did it on another high school. You can see the collaboration spaces where those large screens can connect to personal devices for students for collaboration. This one actually has a little info booth where the 9th graders fix all the 12th graders' computers. And the built-in counters that tie to the columns, which we're also showing here in your B building. And the idea of popping up the roof over the corridor, get some daylight into the middle of the building, and also to put solar panels on the south-facing slope. So really to transform B building, this is actually an image from the office wing at the Jacob Burns Media Arts Lab. And then the small collaboration spaces at the end, we showed 4 of them with glass walls, which allow for group work, but still to be supervised. This is actually an image of where we built these in the Brewster High School. John Jay Middle School also has a good amount of program improvements, but not quite as up to date with its infrastructure work as John Jay High School. So again, there's the code with the blue new construction, which is a security vestibule, and the purple renovation there was the step lab next to the library. The technology space or old wood shop next to the cafeteria. And on the lowest floor, the consumer science and home and careers rooms, and the blue is a proposed new greenhouse. So the technology lab or former wood shop has seen some sort of improvements over years. I would say they've been done in a little bit of an ad hoc manner or incrementally. They look like this. So on the center, you can see it sort of still looks like a wood shop. And the little rooms on the ends have been created, I believe by, local staff and need a little updating. So the inspiration here is to make it a really exciting collaborative space. This is a similar project we actually did at Scarsdale, which I believe the middle school has visited. And it has a collaboration space in the middle and rooms on the end for prototyping tools, woodworking on one side, and laser cutters and 3D printers on the other side. So, and this is another sort of maker space, collaboration space for inspiration. The family and consumer science has really changed. And a lot of that is renovation of the existing building. Probably the centerpiece of that is adding a greenhouse. These are renderings of a greenhouse that we recently are under construction with down at Horace Greeley. And we're seeing a real return to interest for a number of reasons, farm to table and the sustainability of growing your own food. But the real advantage to a greenhouse in a school setting is it allows you to sort of flip the seasons a little bit so you can actually harvest food while the school students are still here, which is one of the most frustrating things with agriculture programs and students without a greenhouse, they never see the results. So it's a kind of a key thing. In the security vestibule, you have a beautiful front hall, but the security booth, the security station is in the middle of that hall. So once you're really in, you're in, and you're mixing visitors with students. And this proposal would put a small security vestibule in blue off to the side so that after students are in the building, all those other doors will remain locked and students will be visitors will be let into a secure vestibule, vetted, and then let into the building. And this allows students to bypass them safely, which is the preferred arrangement. We call these the stepped labs. That's because they have a stepped floor. They were originally designed as computer labs with sort of special casework so that the screens didn't block your view. They've fallen out of favor. And this is just in both the middle school and high school to sort of update them with more up-to-date sort of lecture seating or auditorium type seating. This is another example of one at another high school nearby with some updated technology, and they really can be put back in use for a lot of different things. So at Increase Miller, as Liz and Danelle mentioned, there's a significant amount of money, almost half of the money being spent at Increase Miller is to add the classrooms that are needed to replace the modulars. So actually, when you look, if you took the geothermal out of Katona and the new classrooms out of Increase Miller, you're spending the exact same amount of money on the 3 elementaries. So that's where you really get the parity. There is a thought that there's about 1 classroom short at Increase Miller. So the proposal here is to build 3 classrooms that you see in the blue and a few small rooms so we can eliminate some of the temporary rooms that were built in the wing spaces, which are commonly known in the district as bump outs. So there's the little addition. It will actually create another courtyard or opportunity for an outdoor classroom outside of the kindergarten rooms and ease overall building circulation by providing alternative pathways through the building. It'll really be a little easier to get around. When we talk about new classrooms, we'll do things with built-in storage and daylight. This is an example of a new elementary school classroom we built a few years ago for the Brewster schools. The security arrangement in Increase Miller is also acceptable, but this improves it by putting the security guard off to the side and really making that vestibule separate so that visitors can be fully vetted before they're easily into the school. Right now at both Increase Miller and Meadow Pond, you use an area that was designed as a weather vestibule for your security. There's really no comfortable home for the security and vetting process. And then a common thing to all 3 elementaries is the updating of the library and computer room to really be sort of a next generation learning environment. Both Meadow Pond and Increase Miller do have these open wing spaces, 3 per building, which have sort of been used for different purposes over time. And the goal here would be to sort of restore them as informal learning areas, update the lighting, the flooring, and add air conditioning to those spaces. So while you're not going to air condition the classrooms, you're going to air condition this common area, which will benefit all the students. And in times when it's really hot, it'll give you a common area for them to get a little bit of relief. Katona Elementary, obviously the big cost item there, about half of the overall cost is the ground source heat pump or geothermal heating. So again, the reason that was chosen is because a lot of the main expensive fossil fuel equipment is at the end of its useful life. So it would either be replace it with other new boilers or make the conversion. And that's why that building was chosen. So it's not, it is sort of a pilot program, but it's a full system. So we're talking about a well field, probably on the upper field, probably something like 30 to 40 holes in the ground, 400 feet deep. Is a closed loop system, will have no impact on groundwater. It's basically just using the thermal mass of the ground to heat and cool your building. This is not new technology. It's been around for a long time. It works. It does mean that the building will be fully air conditioned, and you need to sort of balance your heating and air conditioning load. You know, there still will be some gas burning equipment in the building to help in the coldest winter days because ground source doesn't do well sort of below 15 degrees. But that's auxiliary and backup, which is a good thing to have. But it's pretty exciting. You're gonna have a lot of new energy recovery ventilation. And it's a completely new system. And then the program improvements there are going to sound pretty familiar, which is also a security vestibule, and the renovations to the library and computer room to update them. The security vestibule, the thinking is that it might work best at the lowest level because that's the accessible entrance, but we're going to continue to talk about that with the building principal, about the best way to spend that money at that building to improve the security. And the library and computer room will be completely renovated. We actually are going to incorporate a staff toilet into that same renovation because that is an important need for the building administrators. And again, just a little bit of inspiration. This is what's done at an elementary school, and that's a connection between the library and the makerspace. And then Meadow Pond doesn't have the classroom addition or the ground source heat pump. But as was earlier mentioned, they did get their modulars replaced. They've actually had 2 small building additions in the same amount of time. Increase Miller didn't have one. So the focus really here is on the wing space, security vestibule, and the library and makerspace. So you can see that the program improvements are pretty similar. Again, there's the security vestibule right out front. It's making a good arrangement into an ideal arrangement. Their library and computer area is a little larger than others, but it's still being fully renovated. And then the 3 wing spaces will get the renovations and the air conditioning. Here's just another inspiration image of what maker spaces can look like. This one has actually doors to the windows to the corridor. And on the left, you can see the 3D printers with windows to the corridor. So students, when walking by, can see things being made on the 3D printers. And that sort of accidental inspiration is really, really successful in these types of spaces. This has the barn doors that are also have whiteboards on them. And now we're going to talk about money, which is sensitive, so that's not my topic.
Thank you for walking us through the buildings, Russ. We really appreciate that.
Thank you. So we have Rick Gansey. He's here from Capital Market Associates. They're our fiscal advisors. And Rick, would take the first slide?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
perfect, yep. So just talking briefly, obviously, great presentation thus far. But the important part, obviously, the reason I'm here is how much it'll cost the district, obviously, to finance the project. So we talk first about measured approach, timing and sizing. We'll talk a little bit in the slides about sort of how this project came about. And we work with, 180 schools throughout the state, many of which with Russ's firm as well as architect. And I must say that your process has been very thorough and well thought out. So I think it's kudos to the whole team, and the facilities committee, that it wasn't just let's pick out a number of how much to do. It was really identify the scope and the projects, and then kind of arrive at what dollar might make sense for a project. The district does have a pretty large debt service reduction coming up. So I think most districts kind of looking out years, it's important that you recognize that you take advantage of some debt rolling off, because if you get too far close to that point, by the time you vote on a project and get things going, it's just a little bit too late. Other similar districts in your area have done the same thing where the debt falls off. Bedford and White Plains just voted on projects, last month. So the same sort of concept, debt falling off, bring on a new project with local share going forward. And then just briefly, maximize state building aid. So in your case, your state aid ratio has been going up the last few years. You're currently at roughly 30 cents on a dollar, meaning that the state will pick up 30 cents of every a dollar that's spent on the project within what's called a maximum cost allowance. So the district has a cost allowance the state determines for each specific building. And we've done a lot of analysis, with Danelle and Russ and his team to determine what's being developed is within as best as possible the cost allowance by each building. So with this graph, what we tried to show is not just what's been going on the last couple of years and then going forward. We went all the way back to 2014, and you'll recall that the district 14, 15, and 16 is when the last capital project was rolling off. So the district has had a depressed, lower local share, if you will, since the 2017 fiscal year. So the thought process is now that we have in the blue bar, which is another reduction we talked about between the 24 and the 25 fiscal year, is the time where we bring on the new local share for the new capital project. So on a combined basis, which is the drop off of your existing local share plus the new $49 million project, you're still much lower than where you were going back in the 14, 15, and 16 years. So I think to put those years in perspective, I think it's important to show where the district's been over the last several years and where we think it's going to be with the impact, the full impact of this project, moving forward. As far as the cost, obviously $49 million, 30 cents on a dollar covered by state building aid. What we did is in our analysis and working with Danelle and her team is what would this cost the average taxpayer. We work closely with Danelle and her staff to get the average home value full valuation for each of the 4 towns, and you'll see Bedford just over 700,000, Lewisboro just under 600,000, and then North Salem and Pound Ridge. What we came up with was a monthly impact to the taxpayers, and this would be beginning in the 2026 fiscal year through the 29 fiscal year, so a 14-year period that the taxpayers in that first year in 26 would be responsible for an extra $14 a month, if you will. In Bedford, another $11 in Lewisboro, just under $10 in North Salem, and roughly $17 in Pound Ridge. And that would be not an incremental each year. So once you're set at that, $14 a month beginning in 26, that'll carry through the 39 period. So it's not in addition to every year to get up to that additional level. So I think we kind of thought with the finance team and Russ and others that this is a manageable amount. Certainly, we think it's in line with what we've seen with other districts throughout the state. So we think it's an exciting project, and at $49 million, there will be an impact. But you look at where the district was as far as local share going back in time, and it's much lower than where the district had been in prior years.
I think it might be worthwhile to mention now, though, that I think it was $27 million was going to be tax neutral for the community. So it would have felt like, could we go back to the graph? So it would have felt like those blue bars just kind of continued in perpetuity at that level. But when we really started to add up those projects that needed to get done, the infrastructure, it left no room for program improvements or student-facing educational improvements. And I think it was the feeling of the committee that felt short. It felt like we were doing what we could to keep things together without really thinking about how we could make things better for students. And so if you look at this graph, you'll see that those years where it's just kind of flatter and blue, those were all years that debt wasn't replaced and people enjoyed lower taxes. So I think it's 8 years there. And so I think given those 2 pieces of information, the committee really felt we could maybe ask for some more. And that's kind of how we ended up where we are.
Right, I agree. I think this is really impactful for people to take a look at, that the community has recognized some tax savings due to that debt that had dropped off in between 2014 and 2016.
And I think just to point out, in the 25 fiscal year, why it's also important to bring on local share in that year is that local share is, as you know, an exclusion for tax cap purposes. So if you lose that exclusion and you fall all the way down to the blue bar in 25, there's other complications with respect to the tax cap. So it's important that districts think about, doing these projects to bring on the local share, to keep things, flat or, relatively flat as they increase. So that's an important piece. The other piece that we kind of wanted to talk about is with respect to timing of the vote. I think knowing how long it takes for, once the voters authorize the project, Russ and his team will then obviously go through the process of designing the project, bring it to the state education department. So that all takes quite a bit of time just to get, through the state process. So I think the thought about the later vote this year was that it allows enough time to bring on that local share in 25 and not rush through the process to get approval and plans and specs. So that's sort of the thought process on, why the, vote in later this year as opposed to next year.
That was a perfect transition to this slide. Thank you. So this slide, I won't read it line for line, but you can see that the committee has done some significant work in preparation of presenting our recommendation to you tonight. And then there's going to be some more work that needs to be done. So we're at the June 16th point of this presentation where we're presenting to the Board of Ed. During this summer, we would need to do a SECRA review, and Russ can speak a little bit more to that, but any school projects need to get some environmental approvals. This is a level 2, level 1. Type 2. So it's different than a type 1 approval process, but we will work with
It
the
means it's
state.
the routine activities of a school district without much expected environmental. The only thing that we'll really look at a little bit is the well field at Katona. Other than that, this is not an increase in population. It's not a huge visual impact, but it is a legal requirement. You have to, as lead agency, complete that process before you can officially set a vote.
And once we get that review process, we will probably come back to the board in August. And in August, ask for a board budget vote date, which we are anticipating in October 18th of 2022. So more to come on that. And of course, we plan to go and speak with our PTO and any communities who would like to hear more about this, similar how we do the voting or do our budget season, and where we can have a little bit more intimate communication with our stakeholders. So that will go on through through September and October prior to the vote. And then to manage expectations, just like Rick said, on November 2022, provided that the voters approve this, going into August of 2023, we would do planning and design. This, what we presented to you tonight, is really a 30,000 foot view. Russ would have a lot of planning and design to move forward with. We'd have to work, of course, with SED for certain approvals. So we're looking for the construction phase to be in August of 2023 to 2025.
And obviously that would be done without interrupting classroom environment, follow all the state restrictions on noise, no communication with students, et cetera. Most of the disruptive work will be done in the summer.
And of course, this presentation will be available on board docs, but we also plan to build a bond information page on our website. Please don't look for it just exactly tomorrow. It will take us just a couple weeks to get up and running. We plan to do a tax impact calculator. We're working with our technology department to that. That'll probably come at the end of July when the board does set the tax rates so that we can have the most current and accurate information available. But hopefully we can get some sort of interactive tool up and running for you. And we'll, of course, keep all the links to this presentation and all this data for community to review at their pleasure. I think I'm going to turn this quote over to
Okay, great.
Liz.
So I wanted to close with another quote, just really kind of reinforcing the message of community investment and the importance of the school as the heart of the community, and how the entire local community benefits from good schools. Just a reminder that resources invested in improving the quality of public education should be viewed as more than current expenditures for schools and the students attending them. Such expenditures are long-term investments in strong families, a strong labor force, and strong communities. And I do want to take this moment to thank the members of the committee. It was an embarrassment of riches. We had engineers and architects, educators, so much talent and energy. So Girish Bahal, James Danilowicz, Lansing Gatrell, James Hickerson, Joellen Holbrook, Cassie Hollander, Melissa Sultana, Mark Thielking, a name you might recognize from earlier, Niall Washburn, and Damian Whelan. I just want to say thank you to all of the community members for investing their time in Katona Lewis Borough School District. And now we are ready for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you all, to each of you who is presenting tonight, and to our community members, one of whom is here with us this evening, and all of whom participated throughout a really sustained process of collaboration and inquiry, such a deep dive into our infrastructure. And Liz, thank you for your leadership throughout this process. Danelle, Liz, together, I mean, it was really a pleasure to be a member of this committee. I know we're very eager to hear from the rest of the board. We are very excited about this proposal, really eager to hear your thoughts and questions. And it's, my pleasure to turn it over to anyone for comment or question. We welcome your thoughts at this juncture. Please, Bill.
I mean, this is fantastic. I think points to be emphasized, I think you put it very well, is that the ask is not bringing us back up to the ask we had before the debt dropped off. It's still less than it was. So in terms of it being tolerable and affordable and certainly not excessive. I think that's a very powerful message as part of it. I think what to change and how to change it seems very well thought out. One question I have, it's always been like a pet peeve of mine, is that schools aren't air conditioned, and it seemed cruel and unusual. I gave my kids probably too free a hand to say if it's too hot, you don't have to go, because I used to hate going to school when it was that hot. With all of that's going to be work when we're done, what % of the space or in the various schools would be air conditioned? Would it be enough so that on brutal days people can go there and just get some relief, that type of thing?
Paul, do you want to answer that, or Russ?
Well, I don't think we know an exact percentage. We can work on that, but I can say that at middle school and high school, you're going to see considerable improvements in common areas and classroom areas. So there will be significant classroom areas in both the middle school and high school that will now be air conditioned. And here it's Seawing and B-Wing. And at the middle school, it's that southeast classroom wing with its west facing that was built in 2003, which is a little bit hot.
Yeah.
As well as the 1970s 3-story addition is getting some electric pump replacement. The strategy that Paul and Mike and our engineers worked out together is, wherever we have systems that are failing, let's put in a new alternative energy system. And in the case of the middle school and high school, it's electric heat pump, and provide the ventilation and the air conditioning. So we're not trying to throw out equipment that still works, but when it's being switched out, we're going to electric heat pump in the middle school and high school. And then, of course, the library and computer maker spaces at each of the elementaries will be fully air conditioned. So that's a space to go for relief, which is considerable. And then the wing spaces at Increase Miller and Meadow Pond. And, Katona Elementary is actually, the older portions of that building are pretty nice and cool.
Yeah. Actually, I've noticed that. It's like they used to know how to build it.
Well, because it has an attic.
Yeah.
And we're adding ventilation back to the attic.
Okay, it sounds quite reasonable.
Yeah, we try to think of like common areas, so you can feel here in the library, it's AC'd here. So a space where students can go, a common area.
Just to get some relief. Yeah. No, this sounds, and I also applaud the hyper transparency of it, of having a page, a tax calculator, all those types of things. I think even without doing the math, people will be reassured that this is all being done with careful thought. So well done.
Thank you for asking about the air conditioning. We did talk in our committee around questions that parents might have and
Yeah.
concerns that might be on the minds of parents. And this was actually a topic at several junctures, and
Right.
also trying to balance the desire for cool spaces in the world that we now live in, which takes us back
Yeah.
to the sustainability presentation, but also with our objective of not replacing or
Yes.
introducing any new fossil
No,
fuel
it's
burning
a good
equipment.
plan.
So it's really exciting, actually, that we're able to cool some additional space, but in a very responsible
Yeah.
manner.
Yeah.
In every building.
Yes, in every building.
I think from the capital plan, that number that we threw out there, the 121 million, that was a big chunk of that was for air conditioning.
Yeah.
And I think just balancing both sustainability and then, kind of the benefit that for students to be in a more comfortable environment for learning.
Yeah.
We really thought very carefully about how to do that and to do it in a way that a lot of common spaces or, spaces that students cycle in and out of, like the maker spaces and things like
Right.
that, would be available. and
So it is a
qualified.
balance. I mean, and I think you struck the right balance.
Any other
I'll
thoughts or
just have
questions?
I have a comment, because we didn't actually touch on it in the presentation. And in my mind, I'm thinking that we probably need a cheat sheet that we all need to get behind these ideas and be very clearly able to articulate what the ideas are and which of them cost what, and maybe not at the very lowest level of grain. But I think it's very important that we highlight that the way in which the community participated in the work that we did. I mean, I know we've just named the people, we said thanks, but we really did have a very, very strong representation across the entire community. And we literally walked through every single building. I mean, I don't know how you pulled it off. Liz, you did a phenomenal job leading us, but the scheduling of all of that, and Kim, I know you participated there as well. The scheduling of getting all of the community members into all of the buildings. And we actually had to have multiple sessions in some of the buildings, right, where people weren't available. And so we had multiple sessions. And it was so eye-opening to see what needed to be done, right? It's easy to talk about it. It's easy to look at slides, but to actually physically go to the space and to understand why that C-wing needs to be changed, to understand what B-wing looks like and why it needs to be improved was just tremendous. And the fact that all of the community members on the panel, on the committee, joined us through all of those, it really made for some very enlightening conversations then when we came back to the committee table. And I just wanted to highlight that, in my opinion, we didn't leave any stone unturned, even though it was a fairly short span of time. It was a very engaged committee. And I think the outcome is really just phenomenal. I don't think we could have done any better and be as fiscally responsible as we're being. I mean, there's two parts to this. I really think the committee has done a great job.
Rory, I'm so glad that you highlighted that, because I think we didn't mention in our presentation as well that we did seek student input and
Yes.
PTO representation. Russ sat down with Paul, myself, and the building principals, and students and some of the PTO representatives came.
Special ed.
And also we met with the special ed group as well to get their input.
Yeah.
And then prior to that, even when Russ was creating the 5-year building condition survey, he did meet with each principal at their building levels and toward the buildings. So not only did we have this facilities committee with some great members on it, but we also did seek the students' input, and some of them were really great.
That was so evident because when we went to the buildings, at least on at least one tour of each of the buildings, the tour was led by the principals themselves, by people who are in those buildings every single day, right? And not by our architects or not by our administration, but by the people who live and work in those buildings. And it felt so important, I think. And a lot of committee members were asking, well, what does the principal think? What does the principal think? And then we saw firsthand, well, this is what the principal thinks, because there they are telling you. So it was just so thorough. And I think we really did get all the right input.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get the slide in the middle school, as one of the students had wanted to
Oh,
put a
oh, the
slide in to get from one classroom to the next. But
unfortunately, we did have to scratch off some of their suggestions. I do want to say thank you to Kim Monson because she was instrumental in scheduling those tours, and
imagine that
thankful
was-
to, oh yeah, and to all of the building leadership. All of the principals gave us fantastic tours and, just really showed us around the buildings. And Jeff Swiatowicz brought us right on into a boys' bathroom. And I think that really kind of inspired the committee in a way. But it was great. And I think there was so much learning for the committee together. And it was really important to hear these things directly from the principals and the people who can see the needs.
Because I think it was also a really happy accident that we were on the same night as the sustainability presentation tonight. Not just because of the obvious connections in the subject matter and the kind of building, but to see the students here tonight and to see the kind of learning that they're doing.
Yeah.
All of which will be enhanced by the work that you just and your committee just described, not just from the new kind of maker spaces, but we saw them learning from the windmills and the light turbines that we have currently. Think of the learning that will happen from the geothermal work at KES and some of the other projects that are happening. So it's a really great extension ultimately of what we want for our students and the kind of work they do.
Yeah,
Actually, when we did the ground source heat pump at the Post Road School in White Plains, you can buy a little screen that shows you the temperature in the ground. So we can get that put in. You can see in sort of real time the heat that you're pulling out and the heat that you're extracting.
You can throw that in for this price though, right?
It's in there, Liz.
It's included.
It's in there.
And I think that another important, when we do the roadshow and we really start talking to the PTOs and the rest of the community, I would like to add in, a student-focused roadshow for maybe both the high school and the middle school, so they can see it and get excited about it as well, because I think there's some really interesting projects going on. And because so much of the program improvement is going to happen at the middle school and the high school, all of our district students will be able to experience it. And those ones that are in the middle and elementary
Right.
schools now, I mean,
Right.
this is their future. So I think it's really exciting.
Absolutely.
I had one more angle. If I understood you correctly, with the debt coming off, it's sort of now or never, where if we don't pass a bond and our debt goes down to a certain level in a tax cap environment, it would be hard to do it again.
Yeah.
To get up again.
Yeah, it really is a good opportunity now. So during the budget presentation, I often walk you through that tax cap calculation, and we have that exclusion that we take out and then we put it back in. Well, that exclusion deals with the debt that is involved. So it's always a good opportunity when debt falls off. It's sort of like when you stop paying, if you have a car and you have a loan on it and you let that debt fall off after, whatever the terms of your loan is, it's hard to then get that momentum to take on a new debt where this is, you're
That becomes the
leveling
new
it out
normal.
and we're still not going up to that point that we were in 14. Anything else?
No,
you
that's
need to add?
perfect, yeah, because if you look out like the tax cap calculator, not just this year, but like
Right.
looking out, and if Danelle did like a stress test of what if the exclusion went away, it would really mess up the formula and cause undue issues, as far as
Budgeting issues elsewhere, yeah.
Exactly.
So that might be an interesting angle also, because, if people say, why now, the current economy, is this the time to do it? I think there is a sort of a greater fiscal responsibility reason to actually do it now.
Mhm.
No doubt.
Okay, that's good feedback.
We will. Yeah. Thank you.
Good point.
So if I understood correctly, our next opportunity to revisit this effort would be in August. There will be another brief juncture.
Right.
Correct? And maybe at that time, we will have built out the website where some quick facts and even the timeline so that our community can understand sort of where we've been and where we're going, and getting that date out there for the vote will be terrific. It really has been, I think, especially a pleasure to be so focused on the future of our school district coming out of the recent past, and having the opportunity to get back into the schools and to really be thoughtful about how we envision transforming our physical space to best support the learning needs of our students. It really was serendipitous that this work was our work at this time. And thank you, Liz, for being willing to step into the role of chairing the committee. It feels great to have apprised the board and that we're all now sort of on the same page about where we are and where we're going. And it'll be exciting for the community to get up to speed. We're very fortunate to have had so many talented ambassadors already working with us and partnering to develop this proposal. And thank you for your partnership, everybody seated at this table. This really has been a collaborative exercise, sustained over months, and we've all learned a lot. And we're very fortunate to have pulled together this opportunity here at the last board meeting of this school year. We really made tremendous progress in a short period of time, and we're well positioned, hopefully, for October. It's very exciting. Are there any final thoughts, questions? It really only seems fitting to give a round of applause because thank you. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Okay, I think then we are ready to look ahead. And we thank you again for staying with us and being with us at this late hour. Travel home safely. And we can just move forward with the rest of our board business and then hopefully move to adjourn. So this does bring us to 9.01, which is our opportunity for public comment. And whether anyone has signed up or not, if you're waiting to speak, please join us at the podium and introduce yourself. We look forward to hearing from you and thank you for your patience. We will go into listening mode and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Started in 2004 doing this. And in 2005, I brought the word sustainability to the district. And Alice Cronin was leading a curriculum forum for the district. And no one knew what sustainability was. It was still to this day, it's difficult, but then it was much worse. And Karen Benedict, the assistant superintendent of curriculum then, after a long process like these ones that you have with the public, gave us the ability to have a framework for curriculum for sustainability. We have lived in the framework of curriculum for a really long time. And today was like the most amazing breakthrough for the students in the future. And I was just totally blown away that finally everyone in this district is doing what I was doing. When people were bringing their kids to Cancun, I was bringing my kids to the MRF, and I was like, look at these cool recycling things. And but I'm really moved because in 2008, I ran for school board on the platform of sustainability, started that sustainability committee that we still have. We created the goals for reduction, and the idea that now it's not just like one person with a banner like sustainability that I got those two little kindergartners like that there's a lot of people now, and it was just so unbelievably incredibly moving. And you should all realize how rare it is. Districts all over this country are not aware. They're not doing what you're doing in a holistic fashion. It's so important. It needs to be modeled. These kids are going to think it's normal that this happens here. It isn't. So it's really important that you guys show them the possibilities and that they, turn around and they can teach it. And that's what they're already doing. So anyway, I'm really moved. I think it's so incredible that it's finally taken a real systemic approach, and it's holistic and it's wonderful, and I really appreciate it, and I'm grateful. Now, the part that I'm less grateful for. I think your presentation on the facilities is phenomenal. I'm really impressed. I'm deeply appreciative of the hard work and detail that you put in there, but there are some things that I do have questions about, and I'm sure there will be time for those questions. But, some of the things like, did you do modeling on how much fuel use the air conditioning will do, what the greenhouse gas impact will be on that fuel use? I mean, you're going to add fuel to do the air conditioning. The offset of the amazing that you're doing one geothermal school, but the bond is till 2039. That is the CLCPA. That is not going to be fast enough in terms of state law. So it just to bear in mind, that's one school. And I'm sure you're thinking along the lines, if it works well here, maybe we'll accelerate the thing, but just really truly bear in mind that the law, that isn't fast enough for the law. I had some other things that I think are important. Oh, these are things that are less fun, which is that resiliency for the community, places to charge, places to be cool, places to be warm are going to be more and more necessary because of the weather events. So you're building a school environment for the 21st century, but what the 21st century, what we're going to have to deal with is much more in depth. And so the resiliency component of the school's capital plan, if to be just thinking about what there is to offer, all cars will be off fossil fuels by then too. So I'm sure maybe the regular budgets can handle infrastructure for car charging, but maybe not. Maybe we should be thinking about not just bus charging, but additional car chargers, because all cars will pretty much be, very few cars by those dates will be fossil fuels. But it's so fun to dream, and it's really beautiful. I wish we could do this with the vote and this with the construction. It's amazing. And I think that's it, except for I wanted to remind you of a really important thing, which is that the school KES will be using no more fossil fuels. That means no more fossil fuel expenditure. You will not be paying for fuel. It's a big cost reduction. You have to remember the financial benefits long-term are forever that school going forward. Presumably, we're going to be educating long into the future. And those schools, from the moment you do that geothermal, will not be using fossil fuel expenditures. And if you amortize that out to the future in all your schools, this district will be sought after because that will be such a lower infrastructure expense. It will be ultimately lower. And if you amortize the costs over the last 20 years of not having any of these bonds, we're doing great. We're doing great. Don't let the community or people tell you that this isn't the right thing. This is so the right thing for the future of education, for the future of this school district's educating kids. So I'm totally psyched. Can't thank you enough, but do not want you to forget really what the eye on the prize is. Not just education. It's also lowering all of our dependencies on any of those outside sources. So thank you, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Bob Fishman. I'm a South Salem resident, and it's sort of a happy accident that I'm here this evening. I happen to chair the Sustainability Committee for the town of Lewisburg, and so we had a table here for the Sustainability Fair. The reason it's a happy accident that I'm here for this presentation is that past life, if you will, I was the project manager for the renovations in the 2003 bond issue that was done here through the district as the construction manager and the pre-construction manager. So I had the opportunity to present it to an earlier board and an earlier administration as all that was happening. I'm trained as a civil engineer and a sustainability management professional. And in the time that I was working on the district projects around, I was looking at the Katona Elementary School and some of the issues that were going on there. And it became very clear to me that geothermal was a very viable solution for that building. At the time, the school district was looking at how the district could take advantage of air conditioning and where it would be most sensible. And it seemed that the Katona Elementary School was the likely logical choice. I also happened to have put geothermal in my own home when I moved into the district here in 1998. The following year, I put geo in my home. And I've been a happy user of that in all those years since. So I'm very delighted to see this going forward. If in fact the voters will approve, and it would encourage my fellow citizens in the community to vote for this. This is an important engagement, and I take Janet's comments very much to heart. I work with state programs in my sustainability work, on a daily basis, and she's spot on when she's citing the fact that the CLCPA goals are not going to be achieved if we just do the one building. And I will say that in addition to the fuel savings that we're going to see at Katona, I want people to understand that the nature of geothermal is such that the air conditioning side of this is basically free. Okay, the technology is such that you are pulling 50 some odd degree temperatures out of the ground. And Paul will tell you as a facilities professional that if he has a chiller, he's looking for temperatures that are kind of in that range to be able to provide air conditioning.
Right.
So you're getting free air conditioning when you do that. So that's the engineering geek of me inside me talking. But as a policy, I think this is a very intelligent decision, and I applaud the district for moving forward with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else waiting to speak, please?
Hi, I'm Martiel Gang. I've had my foot in both committees, so I'm very pleased to be up here. I want to, before I speak though, I want to acknowledge Janet, who I've been on the committee with Janet since day one. And I think a lot of what's been happening in the district wouldn't have happened without Janet being on the board, starting the committee. I think that should be acknowledged publicly. And as these things move forward, seriously, I think it's a lot of what's happening is because of Janet. So as I said, I had both feet in both committees. Very pleased to see the long-term goals of the Sustainability Committee reflected in the capital plan. I mean, it's just fantastic to see that. Some highlights for me are that obviously no fossil fuel burning equipment's being invested in. That has to happen going forward. We cannot invest in more fossil fuel equipment because of what's happening at New York State level, but also it's just not a good learning tool for our kids. We have to move away from that. It's the only way we're really going to address the long-term issues related to importing oil, burning oil, the health effects of burning oil, all these components. So really great that that's happening. I think also the prudent approach by taking advantage of the end of life of equipment to move to this new 21st century technology makes total sense. Does not make sense to rip stuff out that doesn't necessarily have any useful life left. If it is burnt, if it is dying, we should replace it and use 21st century technology to move the ball forward. I've mentioned this on the committee as well, that I'm interested in operating costs. We need to focus on that. I think that's an important component of selling this plan. And operating costs will be affected by this. It will be affected positively. So I think that's an important component that we need to drill into. I also want to mention that I've beat the drum on this. As we renovate wings and renovate things, if we don't focus on envelopes, walls, where we keep heat in or keep cool in, we are really missing an opportunity there as well, because that will lower our operating costs going forward. And these buildings last 100 years. So we should be doing that every time we're opening up a wall. And the B wing, the C wing, very bad. I'm just telling you. So switching topics, though, two things I learned on this committee, which was really, really exciting, is that I learned so much about the needs of our educators. And the fact that modern facilities really help the learning experience. And not modern facilities like we have, 1950s does not. It really does make a difference. And the other thing that I learned is that apparently, and this was informed by Russ, a general rule of thumb for school districts is that we spend at least 2% a year of the value of our buildings every year on capital improvements, which would mean, and according to Russ, our buildings are worth $500 million. If we do the math, we've been underinvesting in our buildings by a total of about $150 million since the last Bond Act. How much are we sacrificing that learning experience based on the fact that we are way underperforming on the investment that other schools do? And I know that we're trying to track the bond roll-offs, and that's why we're doing it every 20 years. But maybe we should think about that. There's a different philosophy that we need to think about if we're going to keep up with the high levels of education that our kids deserve and that we are here for. So those are the last, that's my last point. I'm just very happy to be part of this, and I'm hopeful that this is successful. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get to take off my mask. It's a pleasure. Thank you to the board. I'm Steve Weissmuller, community member of the Sustainability Committee, I guess, the third longest running. And thank you, Janet and Mark. And I've learned a lot since joining almost 10 years ago. So I'm also the parent of 3 children, one in elementary, middle, and high school. So great to see the plans, the sustainability aspects in the curriculum. We teach at home. I hope all parents are teaching at home about reducing, reusing, and recycling. They surely get it here with the compost and other programs. So just keep up the great work. On the facility side, let me, before I get to facilities, echo something Janet mentioned about marketing. I don't think we do enough marketing on sustainability in our district, and some of it does get lost. You teach it in the classroom, kids get home, what do they say? How was school? Oh, it was great. And that, what did you learn? It was good. It's like, give me something. If we can get it into the papers, if we can do white papers, if we can do YouTube videos, because everyone's on YouTube these days, let's get the word out. If you benchmark our school district against Austin, Texas, Berkeley, California, Boulder, Colorado, we are leading the charge here in sustainability. I've done some research. I've shared it within the committee. I think it's time to get out there nationally and speak to the volumes of work that Janet started, that the school board has embraced and supported over years, the investments we're making, not just in innovative programs, but also in the curriculum. So I don't want that to be lost or forgotten. We should also go for awards, because awards are, what you can put on the walls, you walk into the school, you can be proud of. On the facility side, great work. Would love to see geothermal at all the schools if we could, but understanding the returns may not be there initially. There should be a plan B, or sort of second phase to this, where if the pilot does work, and it will, after 2 or 3 years, you start the next phase and you roll this in and sort of adjust over time. You're going to see it pays for itself, especially as we're looking at inflationary concerns and fuel price rising and everything else that's in the news today. I can't forecast the future, but it doesn't look that great. Investing in this new innovative technology like geothermal, solar, and other technologies that are coming out. Again, I've done some research through my work. I think the time is now to make those investments. The last piece I just want to mention is on security. I do appreciate the front end, embracing the front door. I think there's other aspects to controlling security in light of the tragic incident in Texas and other locations that are occurring. that we take a really deep dive into a full security assessment. I'm sure that's part of what the architects have done, but really take a look at, and I'm happy to talk offline. I do sit on a security committee for a religious institution in the community. We're taking a very hard look at that right now. And there's very simple ways through training, through certain things that you can do in each classroom and at each door in the event of a crisis type situation. So thank you again for taking a look into that and all the great work that we've done this year. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to everybody for taking time to join us this evening and for sticking with us at this late hour and for your insightful perspectives and lending your expertise in public comment. I'm going to close the public comment period now because I believe everybody who might have been waiting has spoken. And we will turn our attention to the consent agenda. And as we prepare to do so, I would just like to borrow a phrase from Liz earlier this evening to observe that we too on the Sustainability Subcommittee have an embarrassment of riches, and you've just met all of them, as well as do we in our community. And thank you for introducing yourself and for joining us tonight. And it's been a pleasure, and thank you for coming this evening and for your dedicated educating of the rest of us throughout the year, and for your inspiration and for your feedback. Thank you. With that, we are going to turn our attention to the consent agenda. We do have a resolution or two pertaining to the work of the Facilities Committee. I'll just point that out. And I'm not aware of anything we need to vote on separately. So if somebody would like to move the consent agenda, please do. Thank you, Liz. And seconded by Catherine. Thank you very much. Are there any questions, comments before we take a vote? If not, then we can vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And 0. Thank you. And that brings us to 15.01, which would be an opportunity for board dialogue or discussion if there is any.
I just want to say thank you to everybody for your work. And really, it was such a great night. And for the staff and administration, just for the pre-meet outside was really great. But it was really wonderful to see our students and our community members and our staff all together, really just moving our community in such a positive direction. And so thank you for your leadership, Andrew, and for all of the staff for really helping to create that culture. And it's just really refreshing and lovely to see. So thank you.
Thank you, Julia. And with that, I think we can look ahead to future meetings. And sadly, for better or for worse, this is our last Board of Education meeting of the school year. So we will take this opportunity again to underscore Julia's thanks to everybody here tonight, not only for all that went into the 2 presentations and the celebration that took place before the presentation, and for all of the conversation that we've been able to have this evening, but also for the Herculean effort all throughout the school year to keep our schools open. It's easy to forget that in January, we were in a position to observe that our ability to keep school open was tenuous, and yet we managed only through the tireless efforts, dedication, patience, and just sheer force of will represented by everybody here at the table and by our building leaders, our entire staff. It really has been yet another extraordinary school year. We really are hoping for brighter days ahead. I think perhaps they are already upon us. And we hope that you have a restful, restorative, enjoyable summer, and very much look forward to an opportunity to reorganize ourselves on Thursday, July 7th. And thank you. So that is our future meeting. The board will meet on Thursday, July 7th, 6:00 p.m. in the high school library. And with that, I'm actually going to recommend that we adjourn. I'll make a motion to adjourn back into executive session to discuss the employment history of an individual. If I could please have a second. Thank you, Julia. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
7-0. Thank you so very much, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you.